Okay, it's turned on and the ink is flowing. Let's go check out that machine now.
Hello?
Ah!
Hello?
Wait, that's not scary. So I played the demo for this game back in October when a bunch of horror games were on sale, and me being an idiot didn't realize it was on sale because it was a horror game. I thought it was going to be a Portal puzzle game mixed with Cuphead, and I love that game very much. Let's forget about that video. So I played the demo and was creeped out. Yes, most in this chapter were little jump scares, which usually don't get me, but the feeling the environment gave was creepy, and I bought the game almost instantly as soon as I finished the demo, and I decided to do a review on it. So I looked into other reviews when writing this one and was confused. All the reviews said that this was wasted potential and not a good game. I played the game again and a lot of these flaws started showing up. So yes, I agree, it was wasted potential. The story makes very little sense to someone who plays just once, but it slowly makes more and more sense after a second or third playthrough. This is still one of my favorite single player games, but I see the flaws in it for sure. This is going to be a complete analysis of the whole game, stating what happens and if it's good or bad or not meaningful. Let's begin. The first screen is a note that you, the player, playing as Henry, creator of Bendy, have been invited by former co-worker Joey Drill. You then show up in a hallway with posters everywhere and this neat art style. The creators wanted a 30s style animation but wrapped around a 3D world, and it works. Cuphead kept the 2D style, which was cool to play in, but this was unique and interesting and worked well for a horror game. There's a crosshair on screen, which I turned off on my first playthrough because that crosshair made me less immersed and I thought it was cool to have nothing on the screen. Then I started walking. It was a little weird at first, especially for an exploration game where all you do is walk, but I quickly got used to it. There was again an option to turn it off, but it kinda just feels like you're flying, so I didn't bother with it. The wobble didn't annoy me as much on my first playthrough, but after watching reviews and noticing it, it somewhat annoys me now, but only when I notice it. The studio wasn't anything special, and exploring was just interesting. Once you explored enough, you discovered the Ink Machine, which has a really good track as it reveals. The soundtrack in this game is amazing, and this is one of the many sections it's really noticeable in. Like, listen. It's great. As you move forward, you try to turn on the Ink Machine. It's a simple fetch quest that sends you through the rest of the studio looking for items to place on a pedestal. I'm actually glad I figured out the items on my own and didn't have to pause to figure out the items, because the game showed a small hint which I think many looked over. There are a few jump scares, nothing too big, but the whole atmosphere is creepy. The first recording found is from Wally Franks, and it's the first of many which showed the real life story of the studio. Where the book is found, there's the first save station, which uniquely enough is a punching clock, like for work. As unique and cool as that is, there aren't enough around. There are like 2 or 3 in the whole entire game. Yeah, there are respawn points eventually because the game doesn't really expect you to end mid-chapter, but there should have been a better save system. Even a menu save option would have been better than none. But I digress. After collecting all the items, the Ink Machine can be turned on. Re-entering this one room, there's now a track of Bendy playing with a creepy whistle with it, and, well, it legit scared me enough to sprint out of that room. The feeling that ink gives as it spreads into the room was great. Too bad it's just that room, for now. The Ink Machine can now be turned on, and as a little Easter egg, after turning it on, you can actually visit Meatly, the creator. I thought that was cool, and it's an achievement, so bonus. There's one of these in every chapter, so I'm not going to go over those. After visiting the Meatly, the worst thing this chapter has to offer happens. A jump scare with Bendy. Now the first time I played it creeped me out and I ran, but the second time I decided to let it catch me and realized it doesn't chase you. And the thing itself isn't scary. Its presence later on is scary, but it isn't scary now. This is a weak jump scare. Not the worst in the game, so I didn't care. It introduced Bendy the Ink Demon and in a decent way, so I was fine with it. But many people don't like the Ink ink demon. I don't know if it's just this jump scare, but many had a problem with it. Anyways, the ink demon seems to chase you as the halls fills with ink and things fall and collapse all around you until you fall. The second voice recording is in the first room by a new Thomas Connor, whose story comes into play later on, which is fun until it's ruined. So you walk through the ink and find levers and eventually an axe. The attacking in this game is, well, it wasn't meant for the game. Breaking stuff is fine, but attacking enemies eventually is not. The chapter ends with Henry passing out? I don't know, it just ends weirdly. Chapter 1 was also the demo, so I instantly bought the game and played Chapter 2. Overall, the chapter is very good. It has a great start, the top floor of the studio is well designed, the music is amazing, and the intro to how everything works flows well. Showing Boris being made is good to start the story, and the recordings are amazing for getting characters. Bendy, at least I thought was cool, but I understand that he could have been made better. Getting the axe after falling makes perfect sense, and yeah, great intro. Chapter 2 is even better.
Oh, my head. What happened?
Chapter 2 starts in the same location where Henry passed out from Chapter 1. Henry decides to try and escape and therefore explores the continuation of the studio. After walking a little, Sammy Lawrence's first tape is on the wall and shows the first section of this chapter, the cult for Bendy. This cult idea is amazing. Too bad it's horribly done. I'll explain that later. You continue and walk through a creepy hallway filled with ink, which actually slows your speed. While walking, Sammy Lawrence walks past and you scream,
Hello? Excuse me, can you help me?
"No, I'm sorry. I don't think the creepy ink man can help you." Well, you still try to follow him around the corner to see that he disappeared into the wall. Creepy, cool, not built upon. It was really just to show the player that he was made of ink, but you keep walking and see the first Bendy respawn station, which is weird because there haven't been any enemies in the game yet. Then there are some switches to turn on a lever, so it sends you back through the level. For what point? Maybe to hear Sammy's recording again and the player, and you can realize that the ink character was Sammy, but not knowing that was Sammy right away is fine because he is the main antagonist for this chapter, so you see him again and again. But you open the door, introduced to the music studio. There's another Sammy recording as soon as you walk in, but Henry suggests turning on the lights first. This recording has some game explanation in it, so it was important. After you turn the power on, the first enemy shows up, and it's this, thing. This isn't scary, and there's no health bar for you the character other than ink showing up on the screen, and the hitbox on the enemy is so random. What takes 3 hits sometimes can take 1 hit another time. Oh, and they come in masses. This first time, they come 1 at 1, but there are like 4 of them, which is more of an annoyance than an actual threat. But let's take a second and again appreciate the amazing soundtrack of this game. You can then enter the projectionist room, where there's another recording, this time from Norman Polk, the projectionist. He shows up again in Chapter 3 for a surprise, but this room will be used later. Continuing, you leave and now the doors should be open. After all the searchers are beating, the next hallway opens? Like, yes, game mechanics. Continue when all the enemies get beaten, but at least make me pull a lever that they're guarding. The rest of the game is like this. There are a few beat enemies and move on, so why is it like this? The hallway is now open. Move on. You can find the infirmary, which also has a flooded staircase, and at the end of the hallway is Sammy's office, which has ink in front of it. As much as it's an obstacle that makes sense, it's way overused. There's another save station and a poster to say, hey, save, but there's no need to save since there's only like a few more enemies in this level. After locating the pump in Sammy's office, there's a mandatory audio log in order to continue. And the keys needed are in some random trash can in the lobby for the music studio. Who would think to look there? The mandatory audio doesn't suggest looking in the trash cans, just find the keys, so that's weird. And it's a random trash can every time. But the band room can now be explored, and it's not useful for anything other than Susie's audio log. Feel familiar? Find a room and well, you'll go back to it. There's a lot of explore and re-explore, and it's not fun. Yes, there's a good element to explore and re-explore like it's done in Chapter 1, but this starts to take it out of hand, and Chapter 3 is even worse. But after finding the keys, now Wally's closet is open, which has a Sammy tape? Like, why does Wally have Sammy's audio tape in his closet? And especially one that has the password to his secret sanctuary located past the band room. Well, once you know the code, you can combine it with Norman Polk's recording to see that you turn on the projector and then play those instruments in that order. This is a great puzzle. I'm being serious. Puzzle hidden within the recordings that allows you to continue, while using multiple interactive pieces in the world. Too bad it's the only one in the whole game. The secret sanctuary hosts another valve that lowers the infirmary ink. 1. Why is the valve in here? I thought the point of this was that the valve in his office was annoying, so it went here to remove that distraction. 2nd, why is it in a place where only 1, or maybe 2, people know how to access? This seems like a vital piece that shouldn't be hidden from the rest of the workers, especially if it's to drain the infirmary. Once you start exploring the infirmary, you see there's no handle for the valve, so you explore further into the sewer. Why is there a direct path from the infirmary into the sewer? In the sewer, we find who we assume to be Jack after hearing Jack's only audio log in the sewer. You can easily kill it with a small movement puzzle that's more annoying than an actual puzzle, and you retrieve the handle to drain the ink from Sammy's office. To drain the ink in the first stairwell. Whoop-de-doo. And as you walk by, you get hit by a frying pan in the back of the head from Sammy. Now, a cool long cutscene. This game's best thing is its characters. From cool designs to great acting and fun or scary moments, this game's characters are great. This is the first of its greats. Sammy's long speech about being part of this cult is great, and there's some story here that's good. Then there's a little tease to the ending where Sammy says,
"Wait, you look familiar to me."
And I think that's cool once you realize it. Oh, and Sammy dying? Totally expected. But nevertheless, it's cool. There's a little bit of killing pointless enemies, but at least these ones make sense because Bendy is near and they work for him, I guess? But then Bendy shows up and actually chases you, and he can actually catch you. It's weird, and my only thing about it is, why didn't they change the first one then? They went back and changed the other stuff, why wouldn't it be easy to change that again? Make the chase in Chapter 1 seem real. Chapter 1 is almost perfect for a game design layout, playthrough, and tutorial, which is rare. But the chase is just horrible. And now they have shown that they can make Bendy chase you, so why wouldn't they redo it? Wasted potential. The chase is the last thing in the chapter, though, right before this.
Hello? Someone there? I know you're in here. Come out and show yourself. Boris?
Yep, that's the end of the Chapter 2. Overall summary, it's the best chapter in the game, very fun, and wish there was more like it. The cult isn't really built upon past this point, which is sad because it's a good idea. That's what's wrong with the cult. It really doesn't have any prevalence other than Sammy's in it and runs it. Chapter 3 starts in a safe house with Buddy Boris. You learn his true identity in one of the books, which kinda sounds like another indie horror franchise, but ignore that. He's actually the best part of this chapter. Walking around with him is so fun. You make him soup and then leave with him and walk around with him for the rest of the chapter. He even helps you. He's the only pure good thing in this game, which is nice to have. He's also very expressionate. His walk animation is goofy, and other motions he does are all fun. You can even give him a little bone that he carries for the rest of the chapter. After you leave the safe house, we are introduced to little miracle stations that you can hide in. They become useful later, if Bendy even shows up. There's a dark section with a small jump scare that even scares Boris a little. Then Boris leaves you. He opens the door and honestly, why would you walk through it? I would wait for Boris, cause what if he comes back and you're not there and he's just like... No matter, you move on to the Heavenly Toy Factory, and this soundtrack, again, is amazing.
Wow. I don't remember any of this. punching in.
And then Henry makes a meta joke about something always blocking the door, and just cause you make the joke doesn't excuse you from it, game. There's a small puzzle with pulling some levers and removing some toys, which is fine and easy, and a recording from Sean Flynn, or famous YouTuber Jacksepticeye. There's the only real jump scare that's creepy. It's Alice Angel. It plays her little song, all the lights turn off, and then the light in the recording booth turns on, and yeah, she's ugly and scary and attacks you and then leaves. Whatever she did though, it opened the door to the next section, which leads you to the only choice section in the game. You can walk down the path of the devil or the angel. Do you want to know what it does? Nothing. Okay, well, there's an extra audio log in the demon path, and Bendy spawns more frequently in the later section, but it's barely noticeable. Oh, and to get the Tommy gun, you need to choose the demon path. Other than that, there is no difference, which is a shame. It would have been cool to have branching paths. See how if you choose the angel, the demon becomes your friend for a little bit, or vice versa. But nope, nothing, just an audio recording. Oh, and both paths are achievements, so play the game twice, which isn't bad if this wasn't the worst chapter to replay. After walking, there's a small Chapter 1 like jump scare that reveals to have Boris next to it. Why would you assume that it's Boris? Do you think Boris was the one doing it in Chapter 1? Boris has the lead pipe that we use for the rest of the chapter as our default weapon. We continue to another toy section to flip a switch where we are greeted by a Butcher Gang member hiding behind a poster. Was he waiting there for us? Did he see us? Okay. Cool jump scare, kill him and move on. After opening the door, we use the elevator and drop down to Alice's floor. After getting on level 9, there's a recording from Thomas Connor again, and we see the entrance for Alice Angel. For some reason, we have to wait for Boris until it opens. Can she not tell we're at the door? Okay. It opens and Boris starts running, and we find a room full of other Borises with their hearts ripped out. It's never really explained why the heart is taken, but it's only the hearts and only the hearts of the Boris characters. But there's another recording in this section and we move on to Alice's monologue, which is great and well animated, but it really doesn't do much. It again shows a little story, but other than that it's just a waste of time, and we were just sent back the way we already went. Now is the worst part of the whole entire game, and this is the final boss. Anyone who plays knows that Chapter 3 is really just fetch quest after fetch quest. Now the fetch quest in Chapter 1 is well made because it progresses the story. We just get that stuff that we never see again, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. And there's even one time where we don't even get stuff, we just attack cutouts. The only good part about this section is Bendy being able to appear near you randomly. It adds a level of stress that not just jump scares, but makes the fetch quest scary. But there's a chance that you don't run into him at all, other than the scripted encounter, even after taking the demon route, which is supposed to have him spawn more. That last fetch quest allows you to go down and meet the projectionist. There's a Norman Polk recording so that you know it's him and shows how to beat him. Just follow him, which is cool again, but it's nothing scary. Even worse, he can be killed. Why is he not an immortal enemy like Bendy? Yes, there's an achievement, but why? And even if you kill him, he shows up again in Chapter 4. Why? Oh, and the first time I got the projectionist glitched into one of the side rooms, which allowed me to freely roam without fear of him catching me. Yeah, stuff happens, but that made me sad. I wished it didn't happen, and I even tried fixing it. I hit him and nothing. He stayed in the corner. Also, why do they not attack when they watch you enter the miracle stations? That makes no sense, but the video game villain better keep walking. After returning to Alice, that's the chapter. You ride the elevator with Alice ranting, and then you start crashing, which is scary because of Boris freaking out. But why is Henry not dead? He falls and falls and falls, and why is he not dead? But there's this real cheap animation for Boris trying to wake you up, and she snatches him, and that's the end of the chapter. Overall, it's the worst chapter in the game. Even with the rework, it's just long and boring. Bendy isn't as scary as he could be, and the other characters, even being the best part of the chapter, are lackluster.
Alright, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
So it starts again with the words from Chapter 1, but this is Chapter 4 of 5. I feel like this is a start of Chapter 5 thing to do. Oh, and this question is never answered. It should be answered in Chapter 5, but it isn't. There's a scary, unknown recording which is just a mess of nothing and has no relevance. Doesn't add to the plot. Basically, ignore it. As you continue, this book section is cool. The recording isn't anything special. We already knew everything this recording has, so why is it here? But again, the book puzzle is cool, other than the fact that it's not a puzzle rather than look around and find the glowing book. If the audio tape did something like Chapter 2, where it hinted to which books or like sections to look for, that would be cool, but no, just find the glowing book. There's a cool jump scare where the video and audio freaks out, and I wish this was built upon. There's a few more jump scares like this, but there isn't really a reason why. It just happens. Then we're introduced to a new mechanic, where ink blobs can be made into different things in order to do stuff. And it's cool, but again, no explanation, not built upon. After moving along, there's another visual and audio jump scare where arms are popping out and scare you. We walk up these stairs and have Alice talk to us. Then we get a cool shot with all these lost ones. They don't really do much though, and there's nothing explaining them, just walk through them and ignore them. There's a tunnel at the end with a flashlight in it, so start crawling. You see a thing at the end, and get ready because it's obvious Bendy jump scare time. He doesn't do anything though, he's just there to scare, so keep moving. We find Bertram's office at the end of the tunnel and listen to his audio about Bendy Land, which is where we're obviously going in this chapter. Even though we are about 15 levels down, we're on level S, so that's very far down. There's a lever that opens a door, and cool, it's Bendy Land already. No build up, nothing, it's shown and here already. You decide that the haunted house is how you should continue through the floor, which, wait, what? Why would you think that would make you go further? Last time I checked, the entrance and exit for rides like this are always in the same location. Just turn it on by playing games. As cool as it seems, how does this work? Why does this work? Well, it opens the first door, which has a lever and a couple of creepy Bendy costumes. So you throw a switch in that room for a switch to be thrown in the main room to go open door 2, which is just throwing cans to distract the butcher gang and flipping another switch. Then throwing another lever back in the first room to go to a room with the first boss battle. Which was cool at first, but it's worse than most Zelda bosses with what you have to do to beat it. Oh, and it's Bertram by the way. You know, the character you met a few minutes ago? Yeah, he's important. Cool, hug the wall until he stops and attack him. Hope we don't see this mechanic again. Then flip the switch with... wait. Was this always how it worked? How was it when Bertram wasn't the coaster? Never mind, just move on. Flip the lever in the main room to open the final room, which is the projectionist. Again, just follow him, play the recording, flip the switch and leave. He will chase you no matter what when you leave, and there's a conveniently placed miracle station, so hide in it. Bendy attacks him, why? No, not why does Bendy attack him, why does he fight back? We learn in the next chapter that everyone knows not to mess with the ink demon, so why does he fight him? Also, Bendy knows you're in there. He looks at you and does nothing? Like he just ignores you. Forget about it, move on. It was cool. That's sarcastic, by the way. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm giving less and less detail about what happens in each chapter. Not because I don't care, it's because the creators seem to do that with the game, and it feels like a complete tonal change. And it's weird. 4 and 5 are completely different games than the other 3, and everything was slightly reworked as 4 was released to make it not seem this way. It's a shame, but back to the game. Now the haunted house works, so you use it, and instantly you know you've fallen into a trap because Alice starts talking. After a small ride, you enter the very obvious boss room, which, wait, why is there another boss fight? Then Mech Boris grabs you, and you know it's your Boris because he still has the bone in his mouth. Why did he not drop that ever? It's a really simple boss fight, uses the turn the ink into tools mechanic, which is cool, but because neither you nor him have health, it's underwhelming. All you need to do is hug the wall and hit him. So, that same mechanic again, and so you beat him and this happens. Where did she come from? I'd say this ink puddle right here, but there's no animation. She just shows up. And then Tom is there, too? What is happening? This one opens with a cutscene that is very interesting. We learn this Allison Angel, not Susie Alice Angel, so that shows a little more with the story that the workers became the characters. There's a lot of expositional dump here because there's none in the other chapters, but that's fine, we were worried about other stuff first. The one thing I don't like about this is the sightseeing thing. When you look through it, you see she will leave you for dead. Why does she not seem to care that that might be a message for Henry? She shows him like he isn't gonna see that. And wouldn't she have examined everything in her room to see the escape thing? No? Okay. Next plot point. Tom doesn't like you. Why? Don't know. But randomly, Bendy is now outside and they leave you for dead. What? Why would they leave you? But they do, and you find the escape. After walking down some hallways, there's an ink river, which this actually makes sense. We're at the bottom of the studio. All the ink would have drained down here and into this section. This setting seems right, unlike the last part. But you go through the ink and find Allison and Boris's boat, and a giant hand pulls it down, and then starts chasing you like a shark. Cool the first time, but it happens over and over and over again. Hit the stuff on the wheel before the giant hand gets you. It's not scary. This section could have been cooler and allowed for a little world building stuff, but nope. Giant hand. After docking, the giant hand decides to leave you alone. Can it only live in the ink? Is there more attached to it, like a body? Never see it again, so don't know. Then there's this little village that holds lost ones. If Bendy controls this river right here, how has he not found these lost ones? And Sammy is back. Isn't he dead? Where did he come from? Could we have not gotten a hint that he'd come back? No. After fighting him, he gets killed. So, no explanation for why he's back, and no explanation further on. Then you and Allison and Boris fight lost ones and searchers for some reason. No explanation, but move on and forget about it. Well, I guess you're friends with them now. Tom hated you before for no reason, and doesn't anymore for no reason. Well, we start walking down this path and the things break and we fall. Again. How is Henry not dead? How? Anyways, you fall into the administrative office. Like Joey Drew's office. The one that should be on the very top floor? Yeah, it's down in the deepest layer of the studio. Why? Because they didn't think to use it before. There was a river in this section. Why is this down here? Well, there's another ink object maker down here, so that's the puzzle. Get some globs, make the things. This section, though, is special. It's another stealth section, but with the Butcher Gang enemies. They can easily be outrun and pose no real threat. Not all that scary. And there aren't any stealth mechanics. No hiding, no corner peeking, nothing. It's not really a stealth game. Bendy shows up after the first piece and just walks past you. Cool. Bye, Bendy. See you soon. After all 3 parts are in, you move on to the vault and look for the tape to find that it's not there and that the demon took it. And then to your surprise...
Looks like whatever was here was taken long ago.
How did you get down here?
They're back. And having a rope is not an excuse. Why did it take them so long to get down here? And Alice starts talking, and because the devs know we hated the fetch quest of chapter 3, make a little meta joke about it. That doesn't excuse you from it, game. You walk through a very similar looking few rooms, almost a mini chapter 1 thing, and even mention your desk for some reason. Then Bendy shows up and Alice says be quiet, but you can just walk past him. He doesn't notice you nor try to get you. Then the final reveal of the whole ink machine is shown, and oh look, the thing from chapter 1. Then Alice makes a thing just for us to leave them again, but this time never to see them. There's no end to their story, they just aren't seen again. She tells you to set us free, and I don't really know if that happens. It's final boss time though. Obviously it's Bendy, but this is nothing what I nor anyone expected. As you play the recording, a little cutscene happens and Demon Bendy shows up and turns into Demon Monster Bendy? This isn't scary. This is actually humorous, and legitimately my first time playing, I laughed. Like, what is this? Well, Bendy hits you through a solid metal wall and starts running around. It was scary at first until you realize all you have to do is hug the wall and flip some levers. It's not really a fight rather than a walk around with some cool music in the background that sounds like something epic should be happening. You take him to another room where this time instead of hugging the walls, you hug pipes with ink in them until he runs into them. And you run back into the throne room to show Bendy the end, which is actually a cool concept if it was built upon, or like built up or anything. It seems honestly out of place, because none of these characters act like cartoons. For them to randomly be affected by a cartoonish like thing, it's random. But it kills him, and the music is good though. and the weirdest ending in the world happens. You go to Joey Drew's house and watch him talk. It's cool and all until he turns around and you look worse than the Emperor. Turn back around, old man. Yeah, that's the scariest part of the game. Well, it sends you through a door and you're back in the beginning. What? So it was all a dream? It was all fake? What's supposed to happen? What? That's it. You're done.
Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
Bendy and the Dark Revival. This is a little theory for the sequel. It's been stated that it's not a sequel nor a prequel, and because the main story is a loop, I believe that this is going to be a side story that takes place with the character knowing it's a loop. I'm assuming that we start before Henry arrives and get a little bit of backstory for some characters like Sammy and Susie before the Henry plot starts. Then the Henry thing starts and we're gonna follow him. He won't know, but we do. We might see some Bendy and the Ink Machine moments remade from a different view. There are some other sections of the studio that we never actually see but we know exist in Bendy and the Ink Machine. But at some point we're gonna figure out that she gives Henry the ability to leave himself messages. Her hand looks like the same thing, and there have been connections with it and the crazy wall in Chapter 5. I don't really know what is going to happen, but I really hope it isn't a different universe with the same characters, but just a side story. I also hope that there are choices that make the plot slightly different, but I don't know how hard that is to do and how much it would affect the overall plot. My biggest hope is that all of it is real, not fake and just an expression of what really happened in the world, in a cool way. Yeah, it's a long game. I have about 12 hours in the game just because I find it fun to look at everything. But well, it's bad. It's underwhelming and the story makes no sense. I watched the game theory videos and their story makes sense, so it's my mindset on it. But you wouldn't really know it just from playing the game. Whether it's fake or not, the story of the studio is not complete. A lot of characters don't have satisfying ends, and a lot is unexplained. The recordings don't really help much either. My canon at the moment is Joey Drew stole Bendy from Henry, so Henry left the company. After leaving, the company started making less and less money, so an ink machine to really bring the animations to life was made. Bendy was the first and it seemed soulless, so to find out what was wrong, they tried human souls, and Susie was first. The first time she was made a slug, and she was probably a slug for a while. They kept experimenting, making ones like Sammy and the Projectionist, which are more human-like, and at that point, Susie is remade into Alice Angel. Buddy, who is from the books, was made into Buddy Boris, the one you play with. Other employees became searchers or lost ones. Tom and Allison are the only two that escaped from what I can tell. They are the only ones without coffins, and finally, Henry is leaving messages for himself in the loop. But this isn't all apparent just from playing the game, and that's bad. I shouldn't have to look up plot stuff. Like, ending explained? Yes. But whole plot explained? No. But it's worth playing. It's quite fun to explore, even in Chapter 3. The characters are cool, the design is cool, and best of all, the music is amazing. My final score is a 6 out of 10. I hope the second one is better, but this is still probably my favorite single-player game. Like and subscribe for more. I will be buying and playing Bendy and the Dark Revival as soon as it comes out, so expect a review for that. Other than that, just check out our other videos. See you in the next one.